right, welcome to the show, everyone. This week's Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency podcast that we call Tennessee WildCast. Good to have you here. Jason Harmon's here.
How's it going, Doug?
Todd's here somewhere. I'm doing good. I'm excited about our show today.
It's going to be a good show, I believe. I'm excited, too.
It's a record-breaking kind of show today.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that big deer that was taken in Tennessee a week or so ago, and I got a great guest in here to talk about that. Before we get there, though, we got some other things to tell them because you were out there getting your own world. So you were out there getting your own deer.
Yeah.
That's all right. Hey, you got a deer.
It's not a world record. We'll show that in a minute. How's that?
Yeah, we will. A lot of stuff going on. Deer season, big season opening this weekend. It is conventional gun season time.
Yep.
And it's one of the most popular days of the year for deer hunters. And I want to remind everyone that the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency will have check-in stations across the state. If you want to take your deer in to those, it really helps with data collection for the agency. It's your part in helping the agency with data collection. And you can see all of those listed out in our newsroom on our website at tnwildlife.org. You can see everywhere that the agency is going to be. Yes, you can check in on your cell phone or online. This new vendor service we got is going real well.
The online, you can do that. On the phone works out great. I did that this past Friday, and it was slick and easy. It just awesome.
Pretty seamless so far, I think. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's been going pretty good. And I think you're going to like the services. And what we're talking about is the folks that sell your licenses also help with a lot of other things, including getting your deer checked in and all that stuff with the vendor service we got.
Yep.
Brent Services. So hopefully it's all going well for you. And again, if you got time and you can check out where our check stations are, it really helps them collect data on your deer. And they work it anymore. We work it the first Saturday of muzzleloader and the first Saturday of the gun season. Then there's other wildlife management areas at work and other things that go on, but this is the biggest data collection time for us. So,
and we've been talking about this multiple weeks, but here's the new license on the screen if you're watching. It's a paper copy now. You can keep as many copies as you need in your wallet, in your bag, or whatever. And
you can also have it on your cell phone.
Yeah.
So you really can. It's really easy. And if you lose it, you go in on your own computer and you run a copy off. Even if you buy it from a store that you've been buying it at for 25 years, if you lose it, you could go in on your home computer and if you got a printer and run it off and keep that copy. And
go to your local library and print it off.
There you go. Go to your library, print it off. Go to your buddy's house and print it off. Do whatever, or keep it on your cell phone, and that will help you. So that's going on. And there are still some of you that are going to get that receipt style. We've been talking about that looks like a Kroger receipt or whatever.
Yeah.
There are about a quarter of the stores left that are smaller stores that are still going to be using that procedure. So some of you will still be getting that.
Right.
Okay? But you can still go home and run you off paper copy.
Yeah.
All right. Small game. We hadn't talked about that much lately, and we need to get some folks in here to talk about small game, but our rabbit season is underway. Our quail season is underway in Tennessee. There was once upon a time I loved the rabbit season, but I really liked it toward the end of the year more than the beginning. So you're going to see rabbit hunters get out there more and more because I think they know as well as anybody that it just gets better as you get toward February and they really get active out there. But it's time to go now, and if you can find some quail, good luck and go have a good time hunting those too.
Yeah, in your guide, page 16, 17 roughly, in your hunting guides, your small game seasons.
It is. It is. Everything's in the guide, and another important guide that
is the waterfowl guide.
This one right here.
Yeah, you want to show that?
Whatever one you're putting them on. Yeah, this is the waterfowl guide, and it is out. And the waterfowl season actually has already started. It did start. It's over now, the first weekend of Reelfoot Lake.
Right.
That's done. Now there's going to be an opening weekend here in the rest of the state, and that's a week after next. Look at your guide. It's late it's late November when it starts. Stops again, and then it starts all across the state on December the 3rd. Then it's open everywhere December the 3rd, on deep into January. So that's going on too. Now, let's show them what you did.
Show them what I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or did you have something else in mind?
No, we can show them.
All right.
All right. We're going to pass over a slide, though. Don't pay attention to this. We're going to keep our guest a secret for just a second.
All right. Way to go.
All right. Here it comes. Here it comes. Drum roll, please. And there's a little 4-point.
All right. Is that what you did? Got you a little muzzle over there?
Yeah, that's my son there. He's holding it up, displaying it for me. But
Tucker's in it, isn't he?
Tucker, he was loving it. He was like, "Where'd the bullet go in?" He was all in it. So
now,
this
was at least your second hunt. You're actually 2 for 2 on shooting, right?
I've shot twice. I've been hunting twice.
Right. What I'm trying to say is you had a chance twice.
Yes,
both
I
hunts.
missed the first time.
That's
Thanks
okay.
for bringing that up.
That's all right. It happens. We all do. But you've had 2 good hunts so far.
Yeah, seen deer both times, and I was sitting at the house yesterday, and a 6-pointer walked through the backyard. So that
I was talking
cool.
to you when that happened on telephone. Yeah, on the cell phone.
So that's
way to go, Tucker. He looks like he's ready.
He's ready. He's wanting to
How
go.
did he like that first hunt with you?
Oh, he loved it. We stayed out there about an hour and a half, seen 3 deer, and he was good. He loved it.
So you think he's the future?
I
He's
think
going to be out there
hooked.
with you.
He's always wanting to go hunting.
All right. Well, don't forget about that fishing part too. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You got to take us in your boat though.
I will. Well, I will take you in my boat if you'll take him.
Right.
So you are 1 buck down. That is count as a buck.
I got 1
easy?
buck, and I got 1 more left. I can
Okay.
shoot 1 more for the season.
All right, and we'll remind all these folks that are going out this week, if you don't know it yet, and some of you probably don't, if you kill a deer and it has antlers that break that hairline, if it's that long breaking that hairline, you've harvested a buck.
Right.
Okay, keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's called an antlered deer now, but it's also called a buck.
Yes.
So, all right, let's introduce Dale.
I think we need a drum roll. Dale Grandstaff.
We can do that. All right, Dale Grandstaff. Captain Dale Grandstaff. Sorry, Dale. Dale has been working with the agency for a pretty good while now.
Since '98.
Since 98, and a lot of you know Dale as the wildlife officer in Montgomery County because you were there for many years.
16 plus years around that. Started out in Sullivan County as my first duty station, and then transferred to Montgomery within about 1.5 years being with the agency, and then I've been there ever since.
Okay, and Jerry Odom is over there.
Yes.
Me and my name's today. Jeremy's there. He's been there a long time too. But you're a captain now, so you're not really assigned to Montgomery County anymore, are you?
No, still live there, still work there, still enjoy hunting there. But I work all over District 21, which is the 12-county area in northern Middle Tennessee, from Montgomery in the west all the way over to Macon in the east, down to Cannon and over to Dixon, that block.
You put more miles on that truck now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and who replaced you over there? Not that they could replace you, Dale.
Well, we had a transfer coming out of Houston County from Region 1, Nate Thompson.
Okay.
And he's been working about 2.5, 3 years now.
Nate just a few days ago down at Region 2.
He's doing a good job over there. Everybody kind of likes him, and he enjoys the area.
Good deal.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy and going to be a good officer for a long
Yes.
time. All right, Dale. You always, and you and Jeremy really always are around something that's happening that's big. I don't know how y'all do it, but y'all are always around it, and you certainly have been in recent years, and you happen to be near what might be, to date, the most historic deer of a certain kind, of a whitetail, but of a certain kind of whitetail ever taken in the world.
Possibly,
So,
yes.
Possibly. It's possible. And even if it's not, it's certainly
It's
in the
still
top.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's incredible. This is a deer we're talking about it was killed in Sumner County,
Yes.
or in or around the Gallatin area, and tell us all about it.
Well, you know, we as officers, typically we hear about big deer. We know that they're out there, and so we kind of watch those areas and just make sure that someone doesn't poach it or shoot it from the road. So we knew about this deer a few weeks or so in advance. And so we knew that when if it was harvested, we were going to hear about it. And so last Monday morning, I was in the tree stand.
That's November 7th, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was in the tree stand actually hunting myself. I'd worked Saturday, Sunday. I went hunting myself that morning, and I'd actually shot a deer at like 7:15, and 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I looked at it, and I'm like, they got him. So I was excited, but then I was also excited that this deer was just taken. And so lots of pictures are coming through, lots of information on it. And I was processing my deer, getting it out of the woods, and I eventually got a phone call from the young man who shot it. Someone gave me my number, wanted me to score it. So I went there, not as an agency employee that night. It took me a while to get over there that day, but I knew they were going to clean it up and get it to the point of just a skull plate and the rack. But I went as an official Boone Crockett scorer. I didn't go as an agency employee.
Okay.
I went as a scorer, and went to the gentleman's the place they had it there. And when I walked in and saw it from the field photos they had to the actual rack, I knew that it was going to be something crazy. So when we started working on it and scoring it, of course it was going to be a green score, and not precise like I would if I'm going to do it after the drying period, but I knew that I was going to get a close score on it. And when I started working on it, I got the right side finished, and I just said, let me just add this up real quick. So I added it up, and when I got to the number, and then I just said, okay, you can just about double this number. And when I doubled it, I knew that this was going to be definitely over 300 inches. And I've never had my hands on something like that before.
Okay, let's back up just in case some folks they're interested in the subject, but they may not be deer hunters. Dale, what do you mean when you say 300 inches and this was scored as an atypical deer? What does all that mean?
Okay, this deer, most deer are going to have a typical rack. And when they have a typical rack, I brought one. This is what I would call a typical rack. It's going to have a G1, G2, G3, G4, and a main beam. Or it could just be this would be probably a 10-pointer, 5x5, 5 on the left side, 5 on the right. Very typical, very symmetrical, no kickers, no points coming off anywhere other than the normal points coming off the main beam. So that's a typical rack. This would be a non-typical rack.
I said atypical. Non-typical is the right word.
Non-typical,
right?
yes.
Non-typical. Okay.
Non-typical, where you have a G1, a G2, a G3, and a main beam, but you also have what we call trash or kickers coming off. And these are non-typical points.
Trash can be very beautiful.
Yeah,
right.
Trash can be beautiful,
Yeah.
especially on this Tucker buck.
Yeah.
But this would be a non-typical point, so it could go in the non-typical category. So Boone Crockett recognizes 2 categories, the typical rack and the non-typical rack.
Okay.
So a typical has to make a minimum of 170 inches on its head after deductions. I'll talk about that in a second. After deductions, it has to hit 170 to make the Boone Crockett record book. A non-typical rack has to hit 195 after deductions to make the Boone Crockett record book.
Okay, Boone Crockett's a club, right?
Boone Crockett is the official scoring for all of North American big game. That's what we as a state recognize.
Okay.
Any of our if we have, let's say we have some type of competition or a statewide deer classic, we do the Boone Crockett scoring.
Okay.
There's also Pope and Young and the Long Hunter Society, but Boone Crockett is what we officially use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, this one scored. You were talking about the non-typical has to be 190.
The non-typical has to be 195
Okay.
net. And when you say net, there is a typical rack within every rack. There's always a typical rack. So within this rack, there is a typical rack in here. There's a typical 4-point side here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So within every rack, even this Tennessee Tucker buck, there's a typical rack within that. You just have to find it. You score that typical rack. You take off deductions, and then you add all the trash to it. That's how you score it.
Trash.
And
Okay.
people don't like the
That's good trash, Doug.
That's good.
people don't like net. They don't like the net score. They want to know what the gross score. And gross is what it grew on its head.
Yeah.
So when I scored this deer in particular, the gross that I gave it, and I say gross green means it has not dried for 60 days. After the 60-day drying period, I will give it an official score, but green means I scored it before it's dried. Now, when it dries, it may shrink a little bit. It may not, but Boone Crockett requires it to be dried for 60 days. Once it dries for 60 days, we've already got it set up in January to. I will score it.
Yeah, we want photographs.
I will score it.
We'll maybe be there for
but,
that one.
But I'll have a lot of our Boone Crockett official scores from the agency, Region 2, will be there, and I'll bounce ideas off of them.
Okay. So they'll be watching closely.
What they're going to say, okay, I'm going to say, what do you guys? It's so difficult. It looks very difficult, and it's going to be difficult, but it shouldn't be that difficult once we get the typical rack.
How long
pulled
did
out.
you spend measuring it the first time while it was still wet?
Probably 2 hours.
2 hours?
At least, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably at least 2 hours. And it didn't take that long to figure out the typical rack. And I'm looking at the screen above you there, but once you figure out that typical rack, then it becomes a little easier to say, okay, all this other stuff is going to be just added to it when you figure out how much is growing there.
Okay. So there's only 2 or 3 or 4, and we've got a good story on Facebook, Dale's in about it. But there's only less than a handful of deer that ever scored over 300 inches in
the
records.
world.
In the world.
Yeah, free range. We always want to say free range because
correct.
there are high fence pens that
Oh, yeah.
have these freakish deer that are over 400 inches. I mean, it's just crazy.
Is that because they can feed them all the
They
time
can feed
and
them,
nobody
and
shoots them?
they
and
can
live?
genetically manipulate them.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah,
can
sure.
they can just keep growing and growing. But this deer, from all accounts, we've seen trail camera pictures of it. We've seen photographs from cell phones. We've seen videos from cell phones of this deer in backyards in the area. So we have no reason to believe this is not a free-range, truly legitimate whitetail from Tennessee.
Dale, a couple of years ago, there was a buck killed also in Sumner County near the city of Hendersonville.
Yes.
That was, we have it. We have it because we confiscated it, mounted it for education reasons. It's a hoss. It's a beautiful, beautiful deer. But you guys heard about it for a long time before this person poached it.
Yes.
This deer, you said y'all had heard about it, because I surely had not heard about it in Nashville. But some of you were aware that it was out there.
This particular Tucker buck, yeah. The one you're speaking of earlier, that was a 200-inch buck. And so out of Sumner County, he didn't have the trash that this Tucker buck has, but he still got 200 inches.
Yeah.
So it would have been easy if that deer had a lot of stickers on it to have gone well over 200. He just didn't have those stickers. But yeah, we heard about this deer. We knew about this deer. And, we as officers keep it quiet because it causes a stir. And if somebody's hunting it, we don't want 50 people driving by the spot while he's hunting it or trying to poach it, or we just kept it quiet also.
I don't think we've said it, but the person that killed this deer is Stephen Tucker. He's 26 years old. He's from Gallatin. And you say he's a nice guy. I haven't met him yet, but we want to get him on here or go find him and do an interview with him about this deer. But did he know? He knew it was a big buck. How could you not? But did he have any idea that it was this big?
I've had a lot of people call me wanting to do interviews or story about this deer, and I said, that's Steven's story to tell. That's his deer. I think he honestly knew it was a big deer, but had no idea it was this big. Mm-hmm. As far as the hunt, that's his story. Okay. I want him to tell that story to whoever he wants to. But I think he knew it was a big deer, mm-hmm. but did not know it was anything like this. His friends knew it was probably big. When he shot it, I think his buddies all realized what he had shot, but he still didn't know what he had shot.
All right, and this was taken with a muzzle loader. Will it stand the test of time as a muzzle loader with its 300 inches? Were the other ones taken with muzzle loaders, or were they taken with conventional firearms or archery? Or
well, we'll go back. We'll start with the top. There's what's called the Missouri Monarch, and it's about a 333-inch non-typical deer, so 333 on its head. Mm-hmm. Then we have the Ohio hole in the horn deer, and it's around 220 or 320 something. Those two deer were found dead. Those are the only two free range. They're the top. They're number one and number two.
But not taken by.
They were not taken by a hunter.
Okay.
The current third record is 307 and 5/8, maybe something around that, and it was taken by a 12-year-old boy with a muzzleloader in Iowa. That's the current.
Does it have a name
record.
too?
I'm not sure if they gave it a name.
Well, this one's a Tennessee Tucker buck, right?
Yeah, this is the Tennessee Tucker buck.
I like the alliteration there. That's cool. Tennessee Tucker buck.
It's got my son's name in it. I like it.
Yeah, I was going to transition from the Tucker buck on the screen you had a few minutes ago.
Yeah, there's a Tucker buck and there's a Tucker buck.
Yeah. But those three are the top three. And then you have two more that are over 300 inches. One was taken, I think, in Ohio by Indiana by a shotgun. And the other was taken in Iowa by a crossbow, I believe.
Wow. Okay. When you say shotgun, do you mean slug, or you mean
shotgun slug?
Buckshot or
shotgun slug in Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the five that are over 300 inches that I'm aware of. This deer from Tennessee, like I say, it's a green score. It could shift either way a little bit. But if the score that I gave it as a green holds up, it would be about half an inch or so bigger than the current hunter harvested world record out of Iowa.
Can all that trash shrink that much?
It could a little bit, but I was conservative on some scoring.
Oh, you were?
It could go up a little bit.
Oh,
it could go down,
yeah.
But it could actually go up a little bit.
Wow.
So we won't know until we put our hands on it again in January.
But at the very least, if it's not number one, it's still going to be number two or number three.
I'll put it this way. No matter what happens, he will still have over 300 inches of antler on his head. Okay. No matter which way it goes.
Which means it easily... And that was a great buck taken by Dave
Wattell.
With Dave Wattell.
In 2000, 244 and a few eights.
Yeah. I mean, and that's
just down the road.
That's a big buck. Yeah. What is it about Sumner County? Now, listen, Sumner County, don't come rushing to Sumner County because it's mostly private property.
Yeah.
But what's special about Sumner County?
You look at, I've always looked at it as Sumner, Olive Robertson, most of Montgomery, a portion of Stewart, and a portion of Macon.
All these are northern.
They're all northern tier, touching Kentucky and touching a great big ag zone up there. So good soil, good ag zone, lots of row crops, but lots of cover for the most part. So they've got food and they've got cover, and it has the ability to grow these giant deer. And a lot more people now are letting younger deer walk, and we're starting to see a few deer show up that are a result of that.
Now, I've seen a few comments out on Facebook that this $2 limit that we started 2 years ago is already working. It's a little quick for
working.
that. Yeah, it's already done. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's done its job already.
No, this deer just happened. I'm assuming, I don't know, this deer was in a spot where he was kind of overlooked for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden somebody sees him, and he gets kind of into a spot where he can be hunted,
What is it? Is it speculation to say that he would have had a rack this big next year? Do we know? Is there any way we know that?
No way to tell. I mean, I'm sure it would have been big, but he could have broken part of it off. The only damage that I saw to this deer, he would have had a higher score and more points. I scored him as a 47 pointer. 47.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
47 points. The Wattel buck has around 50,
Okay.
which is same county, just down the road, 16 years ago taken. So two of our two biggest bucks ever killed in this state are just a few miles apart in the same county. Both of them have multiple points of around 50.
And that one taken last year was no slouch.
No, the one
Or
I
2
taken
years
last
ago.
year was around 20
Yeah.
something points. This deer, 47 scoreable, but it had 2 broken off, which would have made it 49.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the points that are on it that are scoreable are broken. So it could have grown somewhere in the neighborhood of, if each one of the points broken off were 5 inches, which a lot of them are 5 inches or more, that would have been another 10 inches added to it, which would have been up to 323. Plus the points that are broken off would have bumped it on up to closer to 330.
Wow.
So the world record is 333. This, if he had nothing broken off, he could have possibly had more.
Yeah, is it a massive rack? I mean, you've thrown it up there some, I guess.
yeah.
Is it a massive rack if you held it? Are the beans big around? Or?
It's not one of those heavy, massive that you would think. It's not massive. The thing about this rack that gives it a high score, is the tine length, the points. Mass gives you a decent score. Spread gives you a decent score. Beam length gives you a decent score, but tine length blows your score
And
up.
you said there wasn't a lot of spread on this deer,
About
right?
14 and a half inches.
I've seen so many of those at checking stations, I can't remember them.
Yeah,
Can't
it just
count.
has tine length. The G2s on this deer, which are the second points coming off the main beam, they're 14 inches long, and each G2 has around 30 inches of abnormal growth coming off of it.
You just- I don't
So
know how-
there's 60 inches of non-typical growth on 2 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, you wanted to show us something that was
This-
interesting about his. We don't have his rack. We hope to get that when Dale brings it into the score with Steven. Is he coming with you?
He'll be here, yeah.
Okay. But you do have its bottom jaw.
Steven let me, and I told him I'd get it back to him. To me, they probably thought nothing about this jaw. They had it just to see what we thought the age was. But to
And
me,
tell them how you tell age real quick.
age, unless you absolutely know when it was born and that it's a year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, the only way to really know is you can look at the body, you can look at the rack, but the way you really know is to look at the teeth and look at wear. And it's a guess a lot of times, but there are ways you can tell that it's definitely a year and a half or definitely 2.5. But after you get to 2.5, the wear, you have to look at it closely. And that night when I looked at it, I said this deer was 3.5 just based on the pictures I saw in the field, the trail camera photos, and the tooth wear. Now, when I say that, I always say, when I look at it as a 3.5, I always say, but it could probably be a 4.5. Because when I look at tooth wear, I always bump it up a year and say it's possibly a 4.5. And that's my thought still. I got 4 people to look at it yesterday, biologists, Region 2 folks, and out of the 5 that looked at it, 4 said 3.5 and 1 said 4.5. So again, I think we look at it and we say 3.5, but it's probably 4.5. I just bump it up.
And it's the wear on the teeth.
Wear on the teeth, and you just look at you don't look at the incisors at the front.
Hold them up. We'll get a close up of this shot, but yeah. Okay.
You're looking at these teeth, on the lower jaw, these teeth, and as they age and as they eat, these things wear down.
Okay.
And you just you look at hundreds or so over the years, and you kind of get an idea. Here's another one we've got. This is just a jawbone, for comparison. And this one we've got on it is 3.5, and it's similar. The Tucker buck may have a little bit more wear, which again leads me to think it could be a 4.5-year-old deer. But it wasn't a big deer.
Okay, and then you showed us what might be an abnormality with its incisors.
Let me just show everyone a normal jawbone. These are the molars. where they grind their food. They eat acorns, corn, whatever they're eating, they're going to grind it with these teeth. But deer are browsers, so they use these little incisors in the front to break off twigs. If you can kind of see that.
Yep.
These are little sharp teeth, just like our incisors in the front, to break stuff off. As a deer's walking through the woods, they're taking twigs and breaking them and eating them, browsing through the woods. The Tucker buck was very unusual, which I don't think I've ever seen a deer like this. It has no incisors, and you probably can't see that, but there are no front teeth on this lower jaw. And it doesn't mean he's old. It just means they were never there. There are no little spots for teeth. There are no broken off teeth. There were just never any teeth, and it's very loose. Like there's no bone up there for it to be attached very, very good. It's just all speculation. So this deer, for him to walk through the woods and browse like a normal deer, he probably couldn't do that. So he was eating all summer leafy matter, leaves, maybe soybean leaves, corn leaves, honeysuckle leaves, leafy matter. And then in the fall, he could easily pick up acorns. He could pick up corn off the ground. He could pick up any hard and soft mast and eat it. But it would probably be difficult for him to walk through the woods like a deer typically would and browse.
All right, total speculation. But could that have anything to do? Total is what I'm going to ask you now. Does that have anything to do with his size?
You think he could have? His diet of total leafy matter and hard mast, whatever he was eating, could have blown his rack up. That's speculation.
Okay.
What about the number of teeth? The one you showed 3.5 has fewer teeth.
Well,
does that matter?
It's probably the length of the jawbone. The size of the deer.
Yeah.
The size of the deer. They all should have the same amount of teeth, but the size of the jawbone, the length of it, will determine kind of how far they go out on the jawbone. Yeah. Yeah, this deer's a little bit longer jawbone. The Tucker buck was not that big of a deer. It didn't look like in the pictures. It wasn't huge.
Weight-wise.
I think they guessed it around 150.
Okay, which isn't, and
wasn't huge.
That's one of the first questions you get. How much did it weigh? But that's not what the Boone and Crockett.
We don't go off that.
Boone
and Crockett is all about the antlers. It's all about symmetry, and you have to find the typical rack within that non-typical rack. You score that typical rack, and then you add all the junk or the trash back on top of it.
Yeah, Stephen Tucker's trash is a treasure, right? Is that how that goes?
Awesome.
What the way I've looked at this deer is, I scored the typical rack inside, and I grossed it around 158. The typical rack, the non-typical antlers, the non-typical antler growth, I have it at 155. So if you just add 155 and 158, you're hitting that over 300 mark.
Is this a financial thing for him? Could this be a lucrative deer for Stephen Tucker? Or are we talking about that, or does that even come into play with this?
It could be, and I'm I've gotten a lot of calls from people wanting me to magazines, wanting me to talk about it.
Got one in here I want to show you in a minute.
And so I said no, it's his deer to tell the story. I'm talking about as an agency and scoring it as an official scorer, but his phone is getting blown up.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's overwhelming for him. He just needs to kind of take a breath and decide what direction he wants to go with this thing, because it could be worth a little bit of money for him.
The world record smallmouth, 11 pounds 15 ounces, has been around for 50 years or something, 60 years. Is this the equivalent of breaking that world record smallmouth bass?
Probably. Yeah. It's the deer, people are managing them more and more, and the antlers are getting crazier, bigger and bigger. But this world record could be broken. It could be broken in the next few years. The other deer that was killed in 2003 in Iowa. So it hasn't been that long that the non-typical record was taken in Iowa. So I would look for in the next 10 to 15 years another one to break this record.
Regardless, this one could become a world record for a while, but it will still be one of the biggest deer in the Boone Crockett category ever taken.
Yes.
For a long time.
Yes.
For a long
It'll be in the top
time.
for a long time.
All right, Dale. You're going to come back. We're going to have you back here in a week or so, and we're just going to talk about deer hunting and even finding deer sheds and stuff like that, stuff that Dale's really good at. And we'll touch on this deer another time or two if you're okay with that.
Okay.
And when they measure this deer sometime in January, Todd and Jason and I and Lee Wilmot and Don King, we're all going to go take pictures of this.
Some pictures and video of this. Yes.
Document it. All right? All right, everybody. Jason?
Hey, thanks for watching this show. We're out there everywhere at tnwildcast.com, tnwildlife.org. And don't forget about our trophy room. I'll throw that up there real quick. Send in your trophies to our trophy room. Just hashtag your photos TN Trophy Room on your favorite social media site, and it'll end up right there on our board.
Whether it's a Tucker buck or a Tucker buck.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you.
Thank y'all.